What is the Chinese dream? When President Xi Jinping sounded the clarion call in 2012, it was about country and nation.
实现中华民族的伟大复兴，就是中华民族最伟大的中国梦。
But to the ordinary Chinese, what are these dreams made of?
我梦想城市的打工者在城市里面能够有尊严的生活。
梦想都是美好的，现实是残酷的。
In this series, journalist and writer Zhou Yijun travels across China to size up the shifting shape of this dream.
如果你总留在那种情况下，那种生活方式，那么我说咱们自己了，整个社会都不会进步了。
10 years ago, journalist Peter Hessler wrote the book Country Driving: A Chinese Road Trip. He spent 12 years immersed in China, just when the country was in the thick of economic reforms. The book was one of the few Western works touching on the issues faced by ordinary Chinese. The in-depth observations made it a bestseller. It also made the Chinese people reflect on their changing society and country. Now, host Zhou Yijun will revisit the characters and towns that first appeared in Hessler's book. Following 4 unique routes in this country, she'll explore 4 issues most affected by China's development. The changes in the inner world of the Chinese.
每个人都有展现生活的欲望吗？
The economic transformation.
说怎么的？我干好几十年了，怎么突然间就不让我干了呢？
The rich-poor divide.
几千块钱一年，您这钱够花吗？
不够花。
And finally, sustainable development.
我看您的诗里面把它比作是眼泪。
内心比较愧疚吧。
She hopes to get closer to the authentic version of the Chinese dream, in the hearts and minds of the ordinary people in her home country. In this final episode, Yijun travels along the Yangtze. Almost 10 years ago, Peter Hessler wrote about how the country is struggling to balance economic growth with environmental protection. Along the mighty Yangtze River, how is this struggle affecting ordinary people today?
这是长江的水哟，我们是吃长江水长大的。
我也是喝长江水长大的。
China's President Xi Jinping wants clean waters and lush mountains to be part of the nation's Chinese dream. For the people living next to the Yangtze River, would sustainable development be part of their Chinese dream? Sanjiangyuan in Qinghai Province, home to the headwaters of 3 great rivers, the Yellow River, the Yangtze River, and the Lancang or Mekong River. In China's far west, Sanjiangyuan nurtures a large area of alpine meadows and diverse wildlife. Melting snow water from the holy Yuzhufeng mountain replenishes the Yangtze, which flows across 1/5 of China's vast land. Every year, Tibetan herders from the Angla village hold a ceremony honoring their mountain god. They toss wine into a fire and chant Buddhist scriptures to pray for good health and a bountiful harvest in the coming year. The Tibetans have lived on this land for thousands of years, but an increasingly fragile ecosystem has threatened their way of life.
We are now heading to the Angla village. About 400 Tibetan families live there, and every one of them has an environment guardian, patrolling mountains and rivers regularly to pick up trash and protect wildlife. I'm going to meet one of them at their home. "51-year-old Ren Sha raises cattle for a living.
He became an environment guardian under a government scheme to mobilize tens of thousands of local herders to protect the environment. Ren Sha's 26-year-old son, Ang Wen-cai Ren, has also joined in the effort to clean up the grassland.
草原管会员。
对，草原管会员。
对。
这从什么时候开始的？
在那儿，他得15年开始。
15年开始。那个时候怎么会要做这个草原的管护员呢？
我们这边主要是就草原这方面就不像以前退化的特别严重，然后就是国家有这个政策，国家公园，然后我们就这个组织一些每家就是有一个人就做那个环境保护的这个人员，他们去保护那个就检查呀那样。
Ren Sha receives a monthly payout of 1,800 yuan or $250 from the government to keep a log of the trash he collects and rare animals he spots.
这里是发现了什么动物啊？
藏羚羊。
藏羚羊，发现了有7头藏羚羊。所以在这边的污染主要是一个是垃圾，还有一个就是说影响环境的就是这个草原的沙化。
对。
这个情况是怎么发生的？能给我们讲讲吗？
主要是这个污染的话，就是下雪的太少了，下雨的也少了。这样的话就是草原都干了吧，然后就风一吹的话，就把草原这些干的都吹走了，然后就草原就退化了。毕竟以前都在牧区嘛，牧区的话我们主要是靠牛羊生活，这样的话牛羊还是在比如如果环境不好，草质性不好的话，牛羊也不行吧。所以就说我们对这个草原对这个环境就是特别重视这样的。
Sanjiangyuan is known for its rich biodiversity, but it is also extremely vulnerable to climate change and human activities. In the past few decades, the wetlands and pastures have been drying out. Ang Wen-cai Ren is taking Yijun to the Chuma River, the northern source of the Yangtze. He grew up seeing its ebbs and flows.
可是好像感觉水很少的样子啊。
对。
不像我想象的就一条大河奔流的。
对，现在没下雨，这几天没下雨，所以就少了一点。
Since the early 2000s, tens of thousands of herders have been resettled in urban areas to prevent overgrazing. A partial grazing ban means there are fewer cattle on the pasture, and many young Tibetans are no longer herders. Ang Wen-cai Ren is a recent college graduate, and unlike most of his peers, he has chosen to return home.
楚马在你们藏语里面什么意思啊？
曲马河就是这水不是红色的嘛，所以就是红色的水，然后把那个红色藏文就翻译成汉语就是曲马河的意思。
哎呀，这个看起来我以为感觉是一条非常宽广的大河，是长江那个重要的支流，但是你看现在好像很干枯。
全是水嘛，然后现在就是比较少了，就这一条支流。
就是说现在你看到的这个河床，原来其实都是水漫过的。
对，那边全是水。
就你刚才有说到说，因为你们的牧民都往外迁嘛，这种生活方式改变了以后，实际上你觉得，这些草场会越来越沙化，因为没有了动物，然后没有了跟这些草之间的这种自然的这个循环。
就你往山上走的话，有牛粪，然后这个相当于一个肥料吧，他们草这个第2年草长得就好就快，然后这个牛羊没有的话，它山上啥肥料都没有，它就自然的长的话就特别慢特别少。所以就说这种迁移的多的话，这牛羊少了就会有影响。
你个人而言，就是你作为一个生活在这里的人，然后你也在大城市看过，你有什么对这个地方的梦想，或者你个人的期待和梦想吗？
我希望吧，就是主要是把这个地方就是保护起来，就是人们就是这种对环境污染、对环境啊、对大自然的这种就是敬畏。就是我希望就是越来越好，对环境的这种这种意识就越来越强的话，然后就慢慢的话就整个自然就变好了，这样的话人们的生活也就变好了。
In his book, Hessler wrote about a government initiative to get Mongol herders involved in a tree planting project to combat desertification. A similar top-down environmental campaign is taking place in Sanjiangyuan now. the Chinese government wants to limit human activities in Sanjiangyuan to protect the water tower, essential to millions of people living downstream. But for Ang Wen's Hairen, it's not just about saving their home from land degradation, but also about keeping the herdman's traditions alive. Down the stream of the Yangtze, Zigui, a small county, gained national importance for hosting a mega project, the Three Gorges Dam. Spanning 185 meters across the Yangtze, it is the world's largest hydroelectric power station. China began construction of the Three Gorges Dam in 1993. The project was completed in 2009 and considered monumental at that time. With 34 state-of-the-art turbines, it cost more than 180 billion yuan, or $25 billion to build, several times its original estimate.
作为一个人工的工程，肯定是很伟大的一个工程。
所以为什么说我们这个世界第一发电量啊？所以说呢，它每年的发电量收入至少是在300亿人民币以上，在中国来讲，在全世界来讲是非常可观的。这也是我们修建大坝之后的一大宏观效益，非常的就是呢明显的啊这样一个发电效益。
The Three Gorges Dam was a massive project designed to not only prevent flooding, but also to generate electricity and facilitate transportation. However, it was not without cost. Up to 1 million people lost their ancestral homes. Now, 25 years later, the dam has had a resounding impact on Yangtze River's ecosystems, as well as the families whose lives were uprooted to make this project happen.
Lian Lijun and his son, Lian Aoxiang, own an orchard in the mountains. In 2003, when the water level started to rise in the Three Gorges Dam, they had to move to a remote area uphill and start afresh.
嚯，这是现在叫下城是吧？
这个叫龙碗城，龙碗，对对对，它是现在的最好吃的一个品种，我们称它为橙王，就是橙子中最好吃的一个品种。
您家里面种橙子有多长历史了？
从种橙子开始，现在已经有个接近20多年了。
就你们家？
对对。
那您多大？
我现在27岁。
那就是说从你生下来开始？
我还没有出生。
你还没有出生就开始种橙子了？
对对。后来就是3峡工程嘛，蓄水嘛。它这个蓄水之后，一部分的田就被这个水淹了嘛。淹了之后就是说等于说相对来说我们这土地变少了。以前的话像每家的每户啊都是差不多10多亩，现在淹了不少。
Although their lives were uprooted, Lian Aoxiang says their personal sacrifice was necessary.
三峡移民是国家大建设，是吧？是国家性的。然后它是做这个，主要是为下游的防洪，然后还有一个发电，包括说对我们这里旅游。这个东西，它国家有这样的大项目，我们当然要舍小家为大家。我觉得站在一个比较高度一点的位置看的话，这个三峡大坝它的建设是。 纵观整个中国，是为我们这个国家的去做一些事情。对于我们这个地方来讲，确实，相对来说，我们确实牺牲了不少东西，土地失去了这么少，然后交通也是
更加不方便了，
更加不方便。然后简单一点，你说发电的话，确实，由于我们这里是山区，也没有什么大公司大企业。 用电量的话也不大，所以说我们这里并没有用三峡大坝的电，所以说，旅游的话，旅游我说了，由于这里不方便，由于它这个不方便，我们这旅游现在也是，只能说再往这个方向去发展。
Dam building projects are a common sight in China. Hustler wrote about entire towns that emptied out as people relocated to new, isolated locations to make way for the dams. Like many others, the Lian family had to give up their ancestral home and settle down in someplace new. This wasn't easy. Their new home is cut off from the main roads and transportation of goods is difficult. But thanks to e-commerce and a new, sweeter type of product, they can now sell about 5,000 kilos of oranges at around 70,000 yuan or $10,000 a year. In Zigui, there is no escaping the huge signs promoting the Chinese dream. China has a mega plan for the rejuvenation of a great nation. But the Lian family's dream is a very humble one. They hope a new bridge being built to connect the two sides of the river will bring them new business opportunities. There's no looking back to their life before the dam was built. Now they can only look forward. A few hours' drive from Zigui County, Wuhan, a city of more than 10 million people, is waking up. The Three Gorges Dam was built partly to protect major cities like Wuhan from severe flooding. Dubbed the Chicago of China, Wuhan is one of many industrial cities found along the Yangtze. Older residents here remember how China turned the Yangtze into the world's busiest waterway. Almost half of the country's sewage used to be discharged into the river. Steel mills and chemical factories lined the riverbank. But in 2016, Chinese President Xi Jinping made a vow to turn the Yangtze into a green economic belt. This became a significant part of the Chinese dream. These locals who love their morning swim are happy that the change is already visible.
长江的水哟。
哎，这个水不太冷啊。水。你们天天早上都来游泳吗？
对，每天早上都来。
特舒服。现在这个水质怎么样？干净吗？
水质是一类水质，别看着这么浑，它是一类。
这下面比原来好多了。
习近平提的要治理长江，所以从今年来开始，这个长江的污染大有好转，大有好转。特别是这个长江的这个渣子，大的量的渣子现在少了。像往年这样的渣子的话，很多很多的。
就您看得见游泳的时候看得见。
哎，游泳的时候的话很多。 一排一排一堆一堆的，就是那样子。现在的渣子少多了。再一个的话，现在这个长江边下的这个污染源都有很多，大有好。
就确实是这几年提出来保护长江以后，
大有好转。我那是吃长江水长大的。
我也是喝长江水长大。
对，这吃长江水长大。所以从现在来看，这个习近平提到这个要治理长江，这是很好的一个。 目标。
哎，你好啊，
这就是您的办公室，谢谢。
Dr. Wang Liming understands the importance of shifting gears to improve China's conservation efforts. He runs a foundation dedicated to protecting the Yangtze's ecosystem.
我觉得这个社会发展的这个阶段，从这个大开发到大保护，这是一种社会的一种转型。 从这个经济来说呢，实际上所有的根源呢，还是因为发展导致的。因此呢，我们现在搞长江大保护，就可以以此来倒逼这个经济呢，它能够向好的方向发展。
整个流域，您刚才说这个大开发到大保护的这个转折当中，其实是大开发到了一个什么样的程度？我们认为不行了，我们不得不要改了。
这个用我们习近平总书记的话讲，就是说。 这个长江病了，病得不轻，已经到了一个无虞的等级。所以说，在这个整个长江流域到了这样的一个生态系统快崩溃的边缘，这个时候提出一个长江大保护，是让我们能够踩急刹车要把那些不理智的开发，或者说高强度的这个排放这种高耗能的产业要从整个长江流域要从调整过来。
那您觉得环保的议题是全球性的一个议题？那么在中国呢，环保的议题有没有它的特殊性？
这个中国的一个特殊性呢是政府主导，政府在这个环保里面，它还是一个主战场。这个因此呢，这是个好事儿，同时呢也是一个不好的事情，因为环保这件事儿呢需要所有人参与进去，它才能够去共同来解决的。所以仅靠政府出文件啊、出政策是解决不了的。
An important mission of Wang Liming's organization is the protection of the finless porpoise, the last aquatic mammal left in the Yangtze. This adorable creature, known for its grin, is critically endangered. Human activities, including pollution, overfishing, and dams like the Three Gorges Dam, have already wiped out the Baiji dolphin, a close cousin of the finless porpoise. The last documented Baiji dolphin, Chi-Chi, died in human care in 2006. Wang Kexiong is one of the few scientists who has seen Baiji dolphins alive.
所以这个白鳍豚它年龄大了以后，完全靠人把鱼放到它嘴里，然后它才能吞下去。
为什么白鳍豚对我们来说那么重要？
它进化很早的时候就生活在长江里面，它应该说在长江的生活呢，我们就说是有2500万年，有这么长的历史。
2500万年。
所以说它对长江的生态环境的变化和适应是花了很长很长的时间。只能说长江生态环境的变化，这种变化吧，已经超出了白鳍豚这个物种它能够耐受或者能够适应的那种范围了。
我们现在也提出来了，从过去的对于长江的这个大开发，进入一个大保护的阶段。您现在能看到这种由于政策变化带来的对于长江流域水质的变化吗？
虽然时间不长，但是这种变化还是非常明显的。
对您来说是一个好消息，对不对？
对，这是个非常好的事情。你比如说过去那个岸线的占用，一些港口码头的建设完全是无序的，它把所有的自然岸线基本上都用上了。现在就是基本上把这些该取缔的取缔了，取缔之后那些岸线它恢复成这种自然的状态，啊，这样就会对饵料资源、对水质有一个比较明显的改善。
Wang Kexiong knows the Yangtze is a lifeline for China's economy. 400 million people depend on it for drinking water, irrigation, and transportation. But he wants to remind everyone that it is also home to many wildlife. The extinction of Baiji dolphins is a lesson for all of us. Rapid development has destroyed their natural habitat, and the cleanup phase has come too little, too late for them. But perhaps there is still hope for the finless porpoises. In Country Driving, Hessler wrote about Li Shui, a remote city that grew on the back of the synthetic leather industry, an industry notorious for producing a solvent that pollutes the air. Li Shui had little choice but to develop these factories to jumpstart its economy during those days. Likewise, the city of Huainan, located on a tributary of the Yangtze, had few options beyond becoming a coal city.
From forging steel to generating electricity, coal has powered China's incredible economic growth. A large coal reserve once brought prosperity to Huainan, but it has also left a permanent scar on the environment.
谢谢。
Zhang Keliang is a miner who has experienced the ups and downs of China's coal economy over the past 3 decades.
这边就是您的小天地。
对，我大部分作品都在这写出来的。
就在这个桌子。
Zhang, now 50 years old, became a miner in 1988, but he was a poet before he was a miner.
对，刚才我们看的是这首，就是这首诗是。
He used to work 10 hours in the mines each day, and poetry was his salvation.
那个时候是一种选择吗？您会加入这个矿上？
也可以说是唯一的选择吧。 因为我们这块是煤城，假如说你要上不出来学，别的生活门路就很难找，最后只有下井。过去我们这有句话叫走投无路把煤掏，我也属于走投无路的那一部分人。
Huainan's coal economy has left an indelible mark on the surface of the city. Huge water-filled sinkholes have formed after the land caved in above the coal mines.
足以填平苦海的清澈泪珠，默默地荡涤着天地间的尘埃与荒凉。多少苦难与悲怆，都圣贤般的站着水底沉淀。
有的还挺大的，你看那个房子。
这片就是塌陷湖，这片塌陷湖在淮南市还比较有代表意义的。
是因为它大吗？面积？
一个因为面积大，还有一个，因为这些黄屋都在水里面泡着了。
对于您来说，您看到这样的塌陷湖是什么样的感觉？我看您的诗里面把它比作是眼泪。
看这个塌陷湖，当然作为一个矿工来说，作为一个矿山的诗人，就是内心比较愧疚吧，就感觉到了我们的劳动。一方面推动时代进步，一方面给这个大自然又造成了破坏，就改变了大地固有的面貌。
Government reports say sinkholes are expected to cover more than 27% of the city when the existing mines exhaust their coal reserve. But there is hope. On the surface of these sinkhole lakes, large floating solar plants have been built. This is said to be the world's largest solar farm. It produces up to 150 megawatts of electricity, enough to power about 50,000 households every year. Engineer Yu Dehai is proud to be a champion of China's new energy industry.
可以看到了，它真的像一个小岛一样哈。
对，它是一个岛块一个岛块的，总共是有这个厂区有34个岛块，每个岛块它是有3兆瓦，是一个发电的容量。
I was told this whole power station is built on millions of these grey hollow plastic floating modules. It's a bit unsteady where I'm standing now, but it's supposed to be super safe.
China is the world's largest producer and consumer of coal, but the country has vowed to hit its 2020 coal cap targets. Producing more clean energy in China is a dream Yu Dehai shares with the nation.
就是说我们现在站在的这个湖面上面，它原来是一个由于开矿所留下来的这个塌陷湖。
是的，是的。
然后这个湖面上，我们现在开始用了新能源。
是的，
这个好神奇啊！
这个就是一种相互利用、相互的一个双赢模式嘛，既又有水面，又能够很好的利用，然后呢，它这个发电效率也非常好，然后呢就可以发展起来。
您看，其实我们现在站的这个地方不远处就是有一个传统的
是的，
这个火电的这个发电厂，用煤的。
对。
您看到那边的时候有什么感触吗？
我觉得这个可能是未来的一个发展趋势吧。因为毕竟这个环境污染是越来越严重嘛。那能源它有新能源是慢慢的可能比例会慢慢的上升慢慢的替代一部分，让整个地球会变得更环保一些。
您觉得人们的观念呢？对于新能源的观念，他们的接受度是怎么样？尤其在淮南这样一个传统上这么多年都是以煤为他们的主要的工作，可以说这里的人他们的生活跟煤的这个历史的发展是分不开的。
是的，是的。做这个新能源之后呢，我们这个新能源也会带动一些当地的经济，主要是从环保方面来考虑的。那就是说民众的接受度，其实我个人觉得在广大农村还没有推广开来，就是很多人老百姓他不知道这个东西到底是怎么运作的，或者是怎么能够对自己有什么好处，他们都还是不是很了解的。现在主要是国家政策在推动，国家来鼓励大家来做这个新能源产业。
对于您来说，您个人的梦想是什么呢？
我走在任何地方都能看到这个光伏或者风电，风车在转，然后光伏在发电。我一方面是增加 清洁能源，就是这个新能源的一个发电量。一方面呢是减少传统能源的发电量，但是它的总的能源需求呢应该是慢慢的，最好是慢慢的能缩减。就是我们人类不要太贪婪嘛，就大家尽量环保一点，少用一点电。然后
没有什么两万，但是还保留了体型和理想。
80年代我们都是属于80年代文学大潮，赶上文学大潮的那一代人，都是理想主义者，都是那代80年代都是理想主义者。
With China's shift away from coal, the future of Huainan is uncertain. By 2016, 3 major mines had been closed, and 40,000 people were laid off or reassigned to other jobs. Zhang Keliang and his fellow miners are retiring soon. They've given their blood, sweat, and tears to the development of Huainan. But now, none of their children want to work in the mines. Their dreams extend far beyond this withering coal city. Further east from Huainan, the next stop is Wuxi, a city on the edge of Taihu Lake, China's 3rd biggest freshwater lake. Surrounded by lush vegetation and traditional Chinese gardens, Taihu is famed for its natural beauty and abundance of aquatic products. But the rapid development of industry and agriculture in the past 2 decades has had a disastrous impact on this lake. At this U-shaped canal, workers are cleaning up the blue-green algae that's been plaguing the lake for more than a decade. In 2007, a huge algae bloom completely cut off the water supply for the entire city of Wuxi. Soon after that, a government office was set up to combat the algae. The unit now has more than 1,000 workers doing this job daily.
因为我们的那个蓝藻的聚集，它会随着风向、水流的变化不断的变而不断的转移，所以呢，我们是在每个固定的打捞点上都会有人在值守。只要说蓝藻到哪一块区域了，我们相应的人员马上就开始进行打捞。
你们这是在做一个游击战，一个非常顽强的敌人。
我们属于是布好了阵地，然后呢就等着蓝藻来袭。
那在07年之前，其实已经有蓝藻的这个现象。那后来就是在这个危机过去之后，有没有会复盘去想一想，当时什么原因它会突如其来的这样爆发？
应该说是在07年以前，太湖里面就有过这种太湖那个蓝藻大量聚集这种情况，只不过07年它刚好发生在了我们水源地的附近，直接影响到了我们城市供水的安全，所以一下子就引起我们这个高度的重视。
现在你们是蓝藻打捞嘛，都有这个制服，我能过来试一下吗？哦，对对，你看往里面吸了。
就这样一下。
哦，明白了，你就这样子，对吧？这样往里面吸。
这样浓度高一点的，然后那边把那个网往前面弄下来。
One farm is doing its part to save Taihu Lake from the algae bloom. Here, scientists and farmers have joined hands to contain pollution at the source.
在干什么呀？
Scientist Shi Weiming has been helping farmer Huang Yijun and his son, Huang Jiaqi, cut back on their farm's waste discharge into the rivers and lakes.
哦，等于说你们做实验，然后把它种回去是吧？
Mild weather and abundant water resources has made Wuxi a land of fish and rice. In a decade, the city's population has doubled, and so has the demand for grains and vegetables. The overuse of fertilizer has become a major source of pollution for the Taihu Lake. At Huang's farm, Shi Weiming's team has designed an eco-barrier.
那么我们采用的办法就是说，不让它 直接排的，还是在排的过程中把它的沟渠进行生态化改造。这里的所谓生态化改造，就种上不同的植物。你看看，我们有很多的植物种在这，那植物就会有吸收功能，把水体里面的氮磷这个营养盐去除掉，然后让水分净化。那么 传统上来说呢，我们国家一直是说，就肥料这个施的越多，产量越高。但农户一般都是普遍是过去这样的认识，所以我们在这过程中，首先要教育农民，肥料并不是越多越好，只有合理的用量才会有好的产量和品质。
26-year-old Huang Jiaqi will soon take over his father's farm. He wants to tackle pollution at its source before the cleanup phase even happens. His dream is for his sons and daughters to inherit a sustainable farm.
能收啊，最多的话，像现在这段时间的话，只能1-2千斤。
就是过去在这个农一代的时候，都是你们农民以家庭为单位啊，就是自己分散的去种菜。那么现在其实是你们是企业化的，是大家在一起来做。那么这2种不同的工作形式的话，对环境有不一样的这个影响吗？
有，像就是1家1户那样的种植嘛，对不对？比较难以控制，因为他们那个思想就比较陈旧嘛，对不对？他们像肥料的话，他们是觉得是用的越多，然后就那个菜就越好，产量就越高，然后他们就盲目性的使用肥料，包括像农药。但是像我们一样的话，把它们统一起来以后，像农药和物资这一块的话，我们严格把控，就相对来说就好很多。对，
你们对于跟上一代人比，你们是不是普遍来说都对于这个环保的问题更重视一些？
对，就接受的那个知识多了以后嘛，对不对？就是更能接受一些新鲜事物，然后也同样的就是说，信息也发达了嘛，我们经常会看到一些环境问题，所以的话也比较担心这一块。对，因为我爸他们是农1代嘛，我是农2代，接下来也会有农3代、农4代。就是蔬菜，我觉得就是农业是一个朝阳产业，因为中国人肯定是要吃菜，肯定是要吃饭的，所以我以后我还有儿子，我还有孙子，他们都会来做这个，我要为他们考虑，所以必须要就是可持续性发展。
China vows to clean up pollution from its rivers and the lakes, with determination like a strong man cutting off his wrist to survive. Much of the Taihu Lake's beauty has been restored after more than a decade of conservation efforts. However, the battle against the blue-green algae will be a long one.
The last stop is Shanghai, where the Yangtze flows into the East China Sea. A city of nearly 25 million people, Shanghai's landscape seems to shift constantly. Decades ago, having enough food to eat and clothes to wear was the paramount goal. But now, in megacities like Shanghai, people want more than just wealth.
The emergence of China's middle class is one of the greatest economic stories of the 21st century. And now they're demanding a cleaner environment. The develop first and clean up later strategy no longer works. Protecting the environment has become a social and political necessity in China.
A pressing issue that concerns China's growing middle class is the thick smog that shrouds many cities, especially when coal-powered winter heating is on. Studies have found that air pollution causes more than 1 million premature deaths every year. Charles Liao and 2 other concerned fathers started Mila, a service that provides smart air purifiers and delivers new filters to people's homes every month. The air purifier tracks the PM 2.5 reading, so its users know the air quality.
Fan speed yourself. So we started this in 2014, and at the time it was purely based out of need. I still remember in the winter of that year, we were hit in Shanghai with the highest level smog historically. We really sat down as fathers, as entrepreneurs, and we looked at the problem, and we wanted to come up with a solution that we thought could address not only our pain points, but those similar to us.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about the worst days in Shanghai?
Well, I remember one of those days shortly before we flew out for Christmas, and it was just pure haze. And I remember even driving to the airport. Typically, you would be able to see, the water alongside the bridge. That day, it felt like we were driving through a tunnel. And even taking that flight, we thought we were escaping, Armageddon.
So your customers, they worry about the air pollution. Are they also concerned about the big picture, meaning other environmental problems?
Here, I think folks have had now a few decades worth of access to prosperity. And so their needs are constantly evolving and broadening. So it used to be, you have kind of all access to all the material goods, and you feel quite fulfilled. And nowadays, people care more and more about health and wellness, whether that's clean air, clean water, high quality food, and of course like education and travel and so forth. Right? So those are the things that everyone seems to be talking about. In kind of a way that they used to talk about, buying homes and buying cars. When you look at the prosperity of China, now it includes not just economic development, but it also includes a higher standard of living for its citizens.
In Country Driving, Hassler wrote about many individuals, towns, and cities raking in the benefits of a free market after Deng Xiaoping introduced the Reform and Opening Up policy in 1978. Deng famously said, "Let some people get rich first." His vision 40 years ago worked like magic for Shanghai, but in 2019, it's a different era. The city now wants more than just shopping malls and skyscrapers. Since July 2019, Shanghai has been grappling with a new issue: the 22,000 tons of household waste generated every day. For Shanghai's 25 million residents, recycling is still a very new concept. But a top-down campaign has already galvanized everyone, from young kids to old grannies, to fight a long and difficult war against trash. Fan Ping Li, a 96-year-old proud Communist Party member, has become a devout believer and promoter of waste recycling. She makes little paper boxes to hold food waste every day. Grandma Fan knows her way to the new trash collection points in her compound well. Volunteers are stationed here to help people sort their trash. But not everyone likes the idea of following strict instructions. Many do it because it's a directive from the government. But at this event, there is a group of people who truly believe in this movement.
比如说，我举个例子，瓷器算什么垃圾？
Sika Wang is a self-styled organizing consultant, like Japan's Marie Kondo. The idea of decluttering homes is just gaining traction in China, especially with middle-class families. Shanghai's war on trash has made this new trend even hotter. At Sika's event encouraging people to exchange used items, Yijun has brought along a special item.
老师先讲吧，啊。
我带了一本书过来。那么这本书呢？为什么带这本书？这本书是英文书，它有个中文版叫《旋入中国》。我们也是几乎把中国所有的跟目前我们关心的话题有关的地方都走遍了。对我自己来说，也是一个深度的发现，再认识我所在地的这么一个过程。所以呢，我在旅程的终点，差不多我们到上海今天的拍摄是快要到我们的终点了。那我希望把这本书换出去，让它进行下一次的旅程。
这本书是英文吗？
对。这本书真是陪了我们走遍了好多的地方，对，非常有意思。你们可以拿这个英文版，还可以找它的中文版。
旋入中国是吧？
对对对对对。
你想要吗？你想要，我给你个机会 present。我要。OK fine。相关的话可以来找我免费领取哦。
大家为什么会有这么多东西呢？
我觉得就是买欲望、物欲，我觉得这个是根本原因，因为你现在可能不是很缺钱，所以我看到什么就买什么。导致了家里就会囤积物品，
但是包括你在整理吧，就是你在帮大家整理，叫大家断舍离，然后叫大家不要就降低欲望等等，都是其实在做这个环保的事情。你发现跟在上海的这些中产家庭通常是交流的时候，你觉得他们是怎么样来认知这些问题的？
他们其实一开始是不太理解的人比较多。那最终选择找到我们的人都是已经开始理解这件事情的了。那首先从我们人来讲，我觉得一旦我们把整理做好，进行好的梳理，并且给物品找到好的去向之后，那么垃圾分类这件事情你就已经开始在实践了，而不是把它当做一个政府交给我们的任务去完成。
For most of China, Shanghai is the shiny microcosm of the future. But for many people in the villages, towns, and cities of China, the country is still in a state of painful transition. China has made countless trade-offs as it transformed itself into an economic powerhouse. Many people have made great personal sacrifices in the name of country and development. But after decades of headlong growth, the scale has tipped. The country now wants a Chinese dream, and the people are waking up to billions of dreams they want to call their own.